going on, everyone? It's your boy Ahdi. Welcome to the AU Show, your go-to for golden gems. Today I have a very special guest. She's a very close family friend. She's currently based in New York, originally from the Midwest. She's doing big things as she's a partner at her own law firm supporting whistleblowers. Everyone welcome Hamsa Mahendranathan to the show. How's it going, Hamsa?
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So much to talk about. But for me, I always love to start at the very beginning. So Hamsa, I gotta ask. Growing up, let's say like 5-6-year-old version of you. You're in school. I think there's a couple personalities where you're either the very quiet kid, you just want to get your homework, be in and out of school. You're the comedian, you're always cracking jokes, or you're the troublemaker where the principal has your mom or dad's number on speed dial, or like they did it again. Like what's going on? We need to have a conversation. So I guess amongst those personalities and even other variations, I guess what were you like?
Yeah. Thanks for asking me. I almost I'm going to answer, but then I want to get your impression of what you thought I was like when I was young. I was definitely not the troublemaker. I am like such a people pleaser. It would really give me anxiety if I thought someone was upset with me. So I was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to make the teachers like me. And in school, I like your first two archetypes, which is you quiet or were you a comedian? I was both, but at school I was really quiet. I mean, in the classroom, I was just trying to go with the flow, facilitate the conversation the teacher wanted the students to have. But then with my friends and at home, I felt loud and I would make jokes and my mom would always be like, oh, you have such a mouth on you. But nobody at school ever saw that, right? At school, right. I was trying so hard to be a good kid and almost like an invisible kid. I'm not trying to disrupt the flow of what's happening. So I was kind of hiding my full personality at school, and at home, I was sort of I guess more explosive, but even at home, I was a people pleaser. So I don't know how dichotomous I think I am, but definitely there were different versions of me based on where I was. And I was such a daydreamer. That's the other thing. I wish I could do that now. I would just sit and think about what would I do if I won the lottery? I would do that for hours. And now I'm I don't have that imagination anymore.
Very, very tactical advice. Okay, yeah. I feel like my sister would have a totally different answer, but yeah, I got that vibe too. I think to me, you were just always just very, very positive, super nice to me. So I didn't really have anything. I didn't catch any mean girl energy. So yeah, especially back then, and definitely not now. So for sure.
Yeah. I wasn't going to be a mean girl, but I would make fun of people because in a way that I thought you would like it. I wouldn't say it to hurt you, but I would say something that I thought you would think was funny. And I'd be like, oh, now we're even closer because I made you laugh.
Man, those are simpler times for sure.
Yeah.
I feel it. No, it's okay. We got the archetype of what Hamsa was growing up. And I'm just curious. I think obviously I jokingly say in a Sri Lankan Tamil household, there's really two acceptable paths, right? To go down with, an engineer or doctor. I think now the last 15 years, being a lawyer, is accepted, as someone who didn't go down any of those paths. From your perspective, I guess, let's say maybe 10 years old, you're starting to get a sense of how the world works, right? I guess, what were your initial exposures to different things this interests me, I want to do more of this? Was that maybe based off different TV shows, the different people you had in your life? I guess, what were those initial interests, you had?
Yeah, I think, I loved animals. I always loved animals. I was a really sensitive kid, easily emotional, I mean. And so when I was young, I would get really riled up about what I felt people were being mistreated. And I remember my dad would say oh, you're going to be a lawyer. And I was I don't think so. That's not really, I thought I wanted to be an architect. I took a treehouse building class one time where we built little model tree houses. And I was this is dope. This is what I want to do. And I think I had a lot of creativity, and I think I thought I would do something with that creativity. But I also knew that I had to do something that would be a very financially stable job. Even as a kid, I was I'm not going to be a painter. I have to do something where I could always support myself. And if my family needed me, I could support them. So, you said something earlier about everybody's doctor or engineer. I remember I heard a joke when I was a kid. My family said this. It's a very common joke. If you're from Jaffna, it's if you're smart, you're a doctor or an engineer. And then if you're like a little bit less smart, then you're a lawyer. I'm not going to be a lawyer. Like, what a boring sounding job. Honestly, like I fell into it. Like
Right.
I was an econ degree in undergrad, and it was like after like the economy collapsed with like the whole Lehman Brothers scandal and the mortgage backed securities like financial crisis, like getting jobs was just really hard and scary. And I didn't even try, frankly. I didn't even try to get a job. I just knew like no one could get a job. And one of my friends took the LSAT, which is the entrance exam to get into law school. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I know I am good at taking tests. So I will take that test and just take it one step at a time. And that is how I ended up in law school and how I ended up being a lawyer. But it's not a thing that I thought I was going to do when I was a kid. It is a thing other people said about me, but I didn't see that in myself.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of great insight. I was going to say, I mean, props to you. I mean, because I mean, hey, there was a couple Lego sets where your boy was struggling for a little bit. So you took it to the level.
Well, that's also how I didn't end up an architect, because I was like, oh, you need to do a lot of math for this. That's getting really hard.
That's great. No, so I guess you're a great test taker. That's even better. I feel like with tests, it's a mental game. So I guess what was your strategy for taking tests? Were you the smart kid who was like, I didn't study, but I still aced every test? I hated those kids growing up. Like that was the worst. Like I'd rather just you would tell me like, hey, this comes easy than you telling me I didn't study. Because like that was triggering to hear.
It's so rude. It's so rude. So I wasn't exactly that kid. And when I say I'm good at tests, I was good at multiple choice tests. Like in law school, we had to take tests that were like essays, and I was not great at those. But I was good at a multiple choice test. I was good at guessing what I thought the questioner had designed to be like the obviously incorrect questions, and then usually there's like two questions that are like similar. So like I was good at like narrowing down like what are the two choices that are probably correct and then guessing the right one. But also I did not know this, but I had ADHD, and I have ADHD now, and I was a terrible studier. Like I wish I had known that about myself, because then maybe I could have had different tools and strategies to learn how to study. I never learned how to sit and study or study over time. It was always cramming, because that was the only way I could get any work done, was like, now I have a deadline. Like I have to stay up all night and cram all this information into my brain and then take the test. And so I think it was like a combination of two things. Like I don't think I was like inherently smart. I think I was inherently like understood the language of multiple choice tests, and I also would cram. So I didn't ruin my life the way some of I ruined my life in a different way through an all-nighter, but I wouldn't like study for months or weeks or whatever, like my friends, because I mean, frankly, I was busy like spending too much time on homework that should have been like finished very quickly, still doing other stuff, but like I couldn't I couldn't diligently do something every day for a long time to a goal like a lot of my friends would. And this is also why I was like, I can't be a doctor. When my friends were studying and they were thinking of being a doctor, I was like, oh, but you have to learn so much, and you have to learn it. You have to learn it deep inside, because like you need to know what people's bodies work like. And I was like, I cannot do that. I can cram and take a test.
Absolutely, yeah. I think mitochondria is to the level of my scientific knowledge, so I'll leave it at that. Just talk to me about like that time you mentioned. You just graduated school. This is like 08, 09. Like I was like a kid, so I had like you hear about things now like the .com bust and that Lehman Brothers crash. But as someone like we're taught, right? Go to school, get a good job. Like there's a level of projected stability, right? If you follow certain paths.
Yeah.
So you get to that quote unquote mountaintop of like, oh, I've got my degree, like, I'm ready to take over the world. And then that happens. So like, what was that like? And I guess, how are you navigating that? And just, amongst everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good question. I do feel like I was really insulated from it. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, wait. Gosh. Okay. Let me start over. It was delivered. Okay. So that's a really good question, because I do think I was really insulated from it, in the sense that I saw that getting a job seemed like it was going to get difficult. And so I pivoted. I was like, I'm just going to do more school. I'm going to try to wait this out. And of course, like the financial crisis was ongoing. Like when I graduated from law school, it was still a little bit hard to get a job, but that was
right.
But I think that it was kind of the first time that I realized that the story that we are sold about everything like being a meritocracy was a lie, you know, because there is so much out of your control in terms of like can you get financial stability? Can you get the kind of position you want? Can you get the accolades you deserve? Can you get the recognition that you've earned? It was the first time that I was like, oh, well, but also there could be a financial collapse and you can be incredible and not get a job. Because I had friends who were incredible who were not getting jobs. And more so out of law school, I had that experience where like I had friends who were so much smarter than me, who had better grades than me, who were not getting jobs. And it was such a random luck of like, did you connect with this interviewer and did they like you? And did they say like, you know, it's fine if it's fine that her grades are lower than this person's grades, but like we really vibed, you know, and that's how I would get, you know, that's how I got my first job, I think. And so that it was like kind of challenging, like this is like an ethos in how we grew up, right? Like especially like Sri Lankan Tamils, especially like my parents are from Jaffna. They are like snobby people. They're like so proud of how educated they are. And like it's like the story we tell ourselves is like, if you can do all the education, that will equal like success and that will equal safety. And it was like an eye-opener for me that like maybe you can still be safe. Maybe, you know, we live here and we have maybe strong social safety support networks, I think, in our community, but like it doesn't mean financial success. You can work really hard and still not achieve financial success.
So powerful. And I completely agree. And I think the one thing that I think that stands out in adult life, right? Because in school, progress is kind of linear, you know, put in, input out, or output, where it's like if I study, you know, if I cram late night enough, I'm going to get good enough grades and I'm on track to graduate. Versus in the real world, you could spend hours and years doing things and it just might not work, right? But it's like you're not successful, just maybe that endeavor didn't work out or whatever the case is. So I think that was a reality check too. I think for me too, when I graduated, like, okay, well, there's no rules to this. You got to just figure it out.
Yeah, there's no rules to this. And also like, what are we calling success, right? Like that was the other thing, like the idea of success was so narrow. It was like what you could do so that Amma could tell other people and like everybody and like be proud to tell other people that is the success. And I think that like is a really narrow universe of like what you could do, right? And then when something happens or like just in life, when things aren't in your control and you can't achieve that, it's like, oh, this is a total me failure, which I'm not saying like, I have plenty of like personal flaws and failures, but like it's not just that keeps you from getting to what you think you need. And also maybe what you think you need is based on like ideas that don't align with your own internal values. And like maybe that's where some of the mismatch is.
Totally agree with that. No, I think it's tough, right? I think, you know, everyone wants that stamp of approval when they go to dinner parties or, you know, whatever, like to the parents, like, hey, people call like, what is Hamza up to? It's like, hey, she's doing XYZ. Like, you know, she passes the code. You know, she gets the stamp of approval. Whereas that might not be what you want. Totally makes sense. So, you know, with that, right? So you figured school is the way to go. I'm curious, what were like the differences between like being an undergrad versus law school? I guess, did you feel like it was a similar vibe, or did you feel it was more cutthroat, more so from the social sense where people are like, I have a very clear objective. I'm here to be in and out. I'm not really here to make friends, or did you still find a way to balance both? Because, you know, obviously I understand the competitiveness, but I guess how did you navigate both, if you did?
Yeah. So I'll start with like where they the same. They were totally not the same. So I just like for context, you know, we grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I'm a suburb kid. I went to the University of Illinois, which is a huge school, and I studied economics. It was not particularly competitive, and it was huge. Like even if I was pretending to compete, like there were too many people to compete with. Like a really diverse school in terms of like people's like what they came to the school with, like the background they came to the school with, like how like the study skills they had. And I was able to like just get by with my cramming and like, you know, like I wasn't an extraordinary student, but like my grades were fine in college, you know, and I didn't have to try super hard to get grades that were fine. And I had a good time. I like had friends, like a few really close friends, you know, like I liked undergrad. And then I moved to New York for law school. I went to Columbia for law school. And putting aside like the competitiveness, because truly I didn't really feel that so much, but it's because I was not a threat to anybody. Like no one could compete. I was like like just trying to get by, you know, and like people would share outlines with me because they were like, Hamsa is not going to get a better grade than me. This girl needs help. We will give her our outline. Like, so I never felt the competitiveness, but I did feel like it was like kind of like a culture shock. There were a lot of kids from affluent backgrounds who went to school here. There were a lot of kids who like went to prep schools before, and like summer camp was normal. Like, I think this is probably like I think it's like a working mom thing. Like my mom didn't work, she took care of us, but like if you have working parents, that like you have to send your kids to summer camp because like what are they going to do in the summer? And I remember being like, oh my god, these fancy kids all went to summer camp. Like they went skiing. Like I did not go skiing. I felt really out of place. Felt like I'm from the Midwest, but I felt like a country bumpkin there. You know, it took me a while. Everybody talked really fast.
Yep.
You know, like it was hard to like fall into the cadence of the like sort of dynamic in the school. And so I ended up making friends with like a bunch of people from California because they were chill. Like they just talk slowly. I don't know what, but like that's like sort of like I did form really strong friendships there, and like friendships that persist to today with like a lot of friends from New York, but also I like had kind of like an eclectic group. I was in like a bunch of different groups. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I wasn't like at the core of one set of friends. I had like really close friends, but then I was also in other groups where like they were all also like my good friends. I don't know if I'm answering your question anymore, if I'm just babbling, but that was my experience in law school.
No, you answered in multiple choice fashion, all the above.
Yeah.
I guess no, I've heard stories. I do have some friends in law school or who finished law school, so like it's always good to contrast. And yeah, I think obviously like there is the reality of look, we're all here to use this as a stepping stone to get to that next level, but doesn't mean you gotta like be totally rude or obnoxious like, to other people. Like I truly, so cool. Go ahead.
This is like, I think for young people, I wish I had known this. You know how it was like nobody saw me as a threat? Like that is true. Like nobody was like, this girl's grades are going to knock my grades out. But I think that is not the point, because these people I went to law school, so many of them are doing really cool things and are doing really fancy things. And if they remember me and they like me, that's good for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like the point of law school, I think, should not be to be competitive, especially like where if you do what I did, which is like you spend too much money to go to like a fancy school when you should have spent less money and like gotten a scholarship to go to a less fancy school and gotten a really good education anyway. If you do what I do and you like pay for that prestige, I think what you are paying for is the networking. And so you should be a good student and get good grades, but it is to your detriment to burn bridges, because these are people you want to have relationships with in the future. You never know where someone's going to end up, that it will be like good for you to have a relationship with them, you know? That is what like I feel like other people are doing that I didn't know. Like networking, like casually in the day-to-day, is just building good relationships with people, you know?
Totally agree. I think there's a broader point that I would love to get your thoughts on. I think you have your point. I think one thing we don't realize that I wish more people talked about in college was being likable, to your point.
Yeah.
Like whether like you're the person who cracks jokes or whatever, I think those are just ways to create likability. And I think especially like, being a lawyer and things like that, like how you make people feel and like the vibe that they get from you is probably as important. I mean, the outcomes are important too that you drive, but I think how they feel about you is important, because if they say, "Oh, what do you think of Hamza?" and they're like, "Oh," I mean, again, it's not what they say now. But like, if they're like, "Oh, I don't really like her vibes off," or "She wasn't nice," that has a ripple effect. Versus if they're like, if they have good things to say, like that compounds over time.
Yeah, and I think it's like, yeah, if you're like make people feel good, but also like help each other. Like you're in this community and everybody's struggling together, right? Like I'm talking about law school, but it's all in a lot of places, like in the workplace. Like I think if you have like a zero-sum mindset that like someone else's win is my loss, then you're losing an opportunity to like do something that might not be very much work for you, but that could really ease the burden of somebody else. Like you gotta have boundaries, don't let people walk all over you. But like if you know you can help somebody, and why wouldn't you help your coworker if you knew you could, and it would really solve a problem for them that would be hard for them to solve? Like that's like the currency we build, is like by like trying to be in community with people and like consider the other people in your community.
Totally. I think too, like I think I understand. I think maybe it was the where our parents grew up, or other similar parents grew up, like back home, where it was like if you don't perform and there's like 10 seats to like the top college, right? Like it's cutthroat. So I get it. But I think here in America, and being privileged to be, I think that you have to really embody the abundance mindset. Like you said, like Hamza progressing does not take away from me and vice versa. Like, and I think in some capacity, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Like we're only here because of, people that have paved the way for us. And so there is a level and an obligation to, I think, pay it forward where you can. Like obviously don't do it to a detrimental state to your life, but you should find ways to pay it forward when you can. I hope that conversation gets more and more frequent, like with time.
Yeah. And I think I learned that from our families, because like the way it's like so normal to like, I've never seen our parents obviously in like a competitive setting. I didn't know what they were like in school, but like there is this mindset, I think, of like, we all struggle to come here as immigrants and we have to help each other. Like, I cannot look away if I know that you're struggling, It's very insular in a sense that like we're all focused on like other people from our background. I think that is a thing that I wished not just us, but we could be more expansive of as people. Cause like, I think, we were a little bit talking earlier about like the anxiety of politics today. But like, if we could expand our view of what our community is to include people like the people who are our neighbors that are different from us and like live more in community, like there would be less suffering, I think.
Totally.
I didn't mean to get on that existential spiel, but
no, this is all part of it. I love all of it. I think to your point, I think humans just want to feel heard and seen. And I think I was talking to my friend. I think if you ask most people how they're doing, you'll get the surface level. I'm doing good, but it takes a level of genuineness to really probe and actually get to the bottom of how people are really doing. And I think if more people did that, to your point, things would solve itself, hopefully, with time. But go down another rabbit hole there. Moving, I guess, to you, your journey, right? I think so. We joined a lot of clubs. We met some cool people. And then I think for you, talk to me about, I guess, what was that transition like, going, because again, you talked about delaying going to work because you were like in school, right? So to go from the early stages of like, hey, being in corporate as a lawyer, I guess, what were some of the growing pains that come with that? Because obviously, again, like it's one of those career paths where like people don't really know unless they're in it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It was, I couldn't cut it. Like, I'm going to skip right to the point. I was there for like 2 years and 3 months and I was like, I don't feel like I can do this. But it wasn't because the work was so hard. Like, I think a lot of people probably can grind if they need to. And I feel like maybe part of it is I don't remember now, but I do remember being a first year associate, being scared all the time and like doing, working and like doing things that were like felt so mind numbing that I wasn't good at, frankly, and like a big learning curve. I did get a lot of training at my first firm, and a lot of it, the stuff that I still like, that's still with me is like the training in how to work with other people, how to work in a law firm setting, sort of like what should your work product look like, what level of checking and like thoroughness are people expecting, and spoiler, it's perfectionism. And like, how do you approach senior people and ask for help? Like, it was a very hierarchical place. And so I did learn a lot about working there. But for me, it was like, it just felt like that culture like mismatch. It was like a continuation of law school in a sense, where there's lots of really nice people and like people that I'm still friendly with and that I have immense respect for, but that everybody talked really fast, and there was this dynamic that I just like couldn't fit into. I always felt so out of place and like kind of like a weirdo. I felt like a weirdo there. And again, I had undiagnosed ADHD, and I was like, I don't understand why I can't do these boring projects. I don't understand why everybody else seems to do this doc review just fine and I'm struggling so much. And like everybody else seems to enter their time with no issue and I'm really struggling with it. So like had all this like shame that I was dealing with for like feeling inadequate and less than like my peers. I was like, and I had no, like, if you look at us on pieces of paper, like we all look very, perfectly acceptable associates, but I internally was like, but they're good workers and I'm not a good worker, and that I really felt that. So like I was dealing with all that stuff, and I reached out to a recruiter who helped me find another firm, and I went to the firm that I was at for almost 10 years, Constantine Cannon, which I really love. That was like the first time where I was like, oh, you guys think I'm funny And you don't think I'm a weirdo. Like, I still struggled. I had the same struggles. Like, I still had ADHD, you know, I'm still undiagnosed.
Right.
But it like gave me more space to fail. This is a thing I think we don't do enough in society, is like, if you want people to improve, if you want people to learn, you have to give them spaces to fail safely, because if you don't let them fail, they'll never learn how to do it better next time, right? Like, if you're expecting somebody to just do a good job the first time, well, like, great, like, hire yourself, right? Like, you need to hire people that you can develop into, like, teach them skills and develop into lawyers. And like, if you want to do that, and if you really want to do that and start with young attorneys, you have to let them fail and then learn from that failure. So I had that opportunity at Constantine Cannon, which I'm like so grateful for, because my self-esteem grew when I was there over the time that I was there, because I would do a bad job and feel terrible. It'd be like, I'm the worst person, which is like another problem. Like, just because you do bad work doesn't mean you're a bad person. But I was like, I'm the worst. And people would be like, you're not the worst. Here's what you should do differently, you know? And then I would do it better next time, and that would help me. So like, I think that, yeah, being a first year at a big law firm, first year, second year, junior associate, it's really hard. The hardest part is not the work. I think you have to, and there's lots of great firms, if you want to do this kind of work, to find a firm that's a good culture fit for you.
Very profound. With everything you said there, I think, it's like, you just got to find the right fit for you. And I think it's unfortunate sometimes when you're starting off, I think just across all fields, especially like, medicine or even law and tech and the other ones, it's like, you kind of just have to take what you can get to build some experience. But unfortunately with that, you just got to do whatever it takes to a point to eventually you can find, a fit where Hamza can be Hamza, which is excellent. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you could like do great work. It's just, I wish, and hopefully like there's better things later on.
Yeah. I do hope that people, and I do hope that people can find, like, if you can get through those hard times, I do hope that people can find the places that are better fits for them. But like you said, it's not linear anymore, right? Like, something can start out as a good fit and then not be a good fit later. And maybe you find the best fit you ever find, and you just know, like, that's not going to last forever. And the rest of your career, you can't be chasing what you had before. So it's like, I don't take it for granted that right now I have the luxury of like really liking the work I do and the people I work with. I don't know that will last forever. And I'm trying to appreciate it.
I mean, because as humans, we're always evolving. So I think as your values, your priorities, like you as a person constantly shifting, it's like a moving target. You're going to have to always reevaluate, what makes sense in that moment or in that extended period of time. And, with you've had a chance to work in corporate, you thought you were at a different law firm. I feel like there's always this challenge, I think, for folks who are maybe like, who see a bigger vision for themselves, like when is the right time to maybe take that, leap of faith to go somewhere that's maybe established, to either help build something ground up, do their own thing solely, make that shift. So I guess talk to me about what was that process for you when you realized, okay, maybe it's for I've outgrown this environment, or just there's a different calling and a bigger why where I need to do something else, and actually go from realizing that to then making it happen.
Yeah. You mean like when I left my first firm, or recently?
Recently.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like to talk about this. I'm glad you asked me about this. I haven't talked about this very much, but I want to, because I think there's this like idea of what I did, which is like, oh, I started my own firm with like a group of other like people, and like I'm such an entrepreneur that I did this, and I'm so not. That's not it. That's what it looks like on LinkedIn. And that is how we tell the stories on LinkedIn, but that's like not what happened. What happened is like I worked at a firm with a bunch of other people that I liked, and a group of us decided to split off. And a lot of my dear friends stayed with the firm that I was at, and then a group of us that I also have very dear friends with, like we split off into starting our own firm, and it just like it made sense for us at the time. With we were working at a firm where it was like a very varied practice. Like they did antitrust stuff, they did commercial litigation, and they had this whistleblower group. And we were like, this is an opportunity for us to create a firm that's only focused on representing whistleblowers in these like US awards programs and the Canadian awards programs. And let's just take this opportunity and do it. And I was really lucky in that I had several colleagues who were sort of spearheading, setting up the logistics of that. And I cannot tell you how easy they made it for me. Like they basically were like, we can set up a firm, do you want to come? And I really struggled with that decision because, as I said, like many people I really loved were staying, and then people I loved that were leaving. And eventually I decided to sort of take the leap and leave, in part because I think for me, it is a very out of character thing to do. I am a very, like I said, like I'm trying to keep everything cool. I'm not trying to rock the boat. I don't like taking risks. There was something about it that was exciting to like leave with a group of people and then run a small business. Essentially, like we make the decisions on how it works. And when there's a policy that's not good, it's like our policy and that we can actually engage with it and fix it. Like that was all really exciting to me. So I can't say, it's been a year now. I don't understand what my job is. Like I used to be a lawyer, like most of the time. Now I feel like I'm half the time a lawyer, half the time I'm like putting out small business, not fires, but like issues. You know? Right. I wasn't expecting this to be my life, but it's a fun mix. And in some ways it's exciting because I kind of got a fresh start, even though I was working with people I already knew. And it forced me to think about like, what are the kinds of cases that I'm interested? What are kind of the areas that I want to spend time on and expand into? It was like a natural reflection point. So that was like really helpful for me too.
No, I understand while it may not come off as a traditional small business entrepreneur full leap of faith, you did take a bet on yourself, right? And I think that's still phenomenal. So props to you there. I know you like to downplay what you've done, but that's still phenomenal. So don't discredit yourself.
Thank you.
Because you were willing to give up what was comfort for the unknown, right? You could have easily stayed put, you know what to expect, but you wanted something that was potentially a different lane to drive more impact with more unknown. So that's still guaranteed. That's great. And I think for you, like you mentioned, having a shift from doing lawyer work 100% of the time to now, I don't know what the split is, like to do both. I guess how do you think you've had to grow and evolve in that sense, right? In this version of Hamza to do both? Or I guess, have you figured that out for you yet or no?
No, I'm still figuring it out. And I do kind of have to clarify that that transition was happening at my old firm too, because when I made partner, it's inherently, you're doing management stuff now, which like I wasn't doing a whole lot of before. I was doing like a little bit of helping. But that transition has been really hard. People say this all the time. I'm not the one like who's inventing this, but when you get promoted, kind of in any field, but particularly as a lawyer, you don't get promoted for your management skills. You get promoted for your lawyering skills. And then you have to take on this new management job that like no one ever trained you for, So it is like a huge growing pain. A lot of it for me, like I said, putting out fryers, just like trying to keep track of stuff, which, is like, that's hard for everybody. But, when it's like health insurance, not that I'm responsible for that, but like,
right.
It's like these day-to-day things that impact your life. And so you look into it and you remember to do it. But it's also navigating people. There's always like difficult people dynamics, I think, no matter where you work. And that is actually a skill that I had to build over time, is sort of understanding the group of people that you're working with and where does conflict come from, is like sort of like where their values are maybe and what's mismatched with like how things are playing out. And so like the better you know a group of people, the better you can sort of navigate how do we have to make this decision in a cooperative way. We're a firm with 9 partners. So when we make decisions, it's not one person who makes any decisions. We make decisions as a group, and that can be really hard. So we can't make every decision that way because that's like not a way for a firm to exist, after a few months. But navigating people dynamics is the thing I think is like the biggest learning curve for me, and the thing that has been most useful in running a small business, because you can get information for most of the other stuff, right? You need to get the information yourself, or you need to trust the people you work with to get the information. But once you have the information, it's just like, how do we make a decision that works for the group of people that we are?
Totally. No, you're right. We live in an era. It's not a lack of information anymore. It's just like you distill and implement, I think, which is the hard part. Yeah. And so, like with that, right, I think for me, I think there's been this concept of like having a board of directors, right, in your personal life, where it's like you have mentors, just sounding boards that you can run ideas by, right? So make, big decisions, whether it's, personally, professionally, and even within professionally, right, to your point, like navigating just broader challenges. I guess for you, when you're like going through that of like trying to figure out how to lead now, right, on top of being a lawyer, I guess, did you lean on any mentors, or I guess anything like that in that time, or no?
Yeah, I did. It's funny because like at first when you asked this question, I was thinking about like in my family, and I think like my dad died when I was young, and I'm an older sibling, so I was like all my other friends, peers were also older siblings, and there is this like older sibling mentality of like you just got to figure it out, and you got to tell your like even for like Amma's problems, you got to figure it out. So I do have mentors like through my work and stuff. I worked with a woman named Alicia who was an incredible mentor to me in terms of like the like navigating people and like business side of stuff. She like I learned a lot from her. I had a lot of mentors who were lawyers, like so many at Constantine Cannon at my current firm, who like helped me develop like my legal skills. But like I would never have. I think when I was younger, I would never have thought of Amma as like one of my mentors, because when I was young, I didn't want to be like her. I wanted to be like my dad. But my mom is like so good at relationship building. And I think a lot of those skills that I implement, even in the workplace and out of the workplace, that like revolve around relationship building came from her. And so I didn't like ask her like, what should I do? How should I do this? But when I navigate situations, I approach them with a mindset that I learned from her. If that makes sense.
I loved it. Shout out to Mahendranathan. I gotta give her a shout out.
Yeah.
She's lovely. She's dope. No, I agree with that. I think like there's a balance, I think, of understanding. I think now it's like, have I put my best foot forward, right? Have I tried what I know? And then also, have I surrounded myself with people I can leverage? Because we can't, I think we got to just get rid of this notion of like self-made. I think it sounds great to say, like, and like music and stuff.
Yeah.
No one is ever self-made. And I think, again, like we stand on the shoulders of giants, and like you need help to get to where you want to go. And I think if you don't recognize that, then you're just never going to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's totally right. And I think we don't like, sometimes we think like there's one way to get help, which is like asking for help and then someone giving you advice, and not thinking of like all of the ways that everybody supports us. Like I cannot tell you how absurd it is. This is true of me, and this is true of like two of my besties, also Sri Lankan. Our husbands do everything in our relationships. Like like the laundry, they cook the food, they keep the house tidy, and it is like so critical to my ability to do a good job at my work and like support my family, including him, but also including Amma, that he supports me and lets me be chaotic. Like at work, I have to be so narrow and focused, and I have to use all my energy. And at home, I'm chaotic. I think there is like, I'm getting like, this is like a very weird connection, but like, when I think about how I was raised, where like it was the same, where I never learned to cook. I'm a cooked, I'm a cleaned, I'm a did everything. I'm a supported every life need that I had so that I could focus on school, right? And
right.
I could not be here today if she didn't do that. Like, or I would be different, right? I would have, maybe I'd be a better cook, frankly, if she made me or, so
there's no saying you don't have to learn to cook now.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I will try now, but I'm saying like that pattern is repeating now, right? Where I have a spouse who really supports my day-to-day needs and also, frankly, is a dope, nice person. But yeah, I think that like, if you're pretending like we don't live in community, you're lying to yourself. Like we're able to do what we do because we live in community with other people.
1,000%. And no, I love that you highlighted how like the most important arguable, partnership, one's life is who they choose to be, like their spouse. And I love that you highlighted that he does what he does to allow you to be you.
Yeah. And I will say though, I think Mindy Kaling said this, like best friend is a tier. He is on tier 1, but like Amma and Nimalin are also on tier 1,
Hey, well, definitely, family always comes first. I love that. So, with that, right? So you've navigated learning how to do what you do best, along with the business side of things and management side of things. But, with this new firm, I guess, what are you excited about? Like, obviously, I don't want to put the pressure of saying, where do you want to be 5-10 years from now? Because we talked, it's a moving target. But in the short term, I guess, what are some things that you're excited to like put Hamza's touch on that you maybe didn't get a chance to do before?
Yeah. this is hard because I still don't have time for this and I really want to. Like, so a lot of our work is focusing on fraud. Like, we represent whistleblowers who are blowing the whistle on fraud that has impacted the government. Like, the government is spending money fraudulently or due to fraud, or they're violating securities laws or tax laws or some other laws, right? Like, that they just want to blow the whistle on somebody who's doing the wrong thing. Excuse me. So my focus is usually on industries like healthcare fraud. Like, is this Medicare fraud? Is this Medicare fraud? Is this like pharmaceutical drug related fraud? Or like, oh, is this cybersecurity fraud? And so we're constantly on the lookout for like, where are there areas that are vulnerable to fraud? And especially in our changing environment that is always changing. But if I'm honest, like, the thing I want, so that is what I spend time on doing. But what I want to spend time doing is understanding more the data out there about the experience of whistleblowing, because it is a very difficult position to be in.
Right.
It is a very arduous, stigmatizing journey to be on. I think it like shows up in different ways. Like, there is not one mechanism by which a whistleblower blows a whistle, right? There's all these little ways where people speak up or choose not to speak up. And I'm really interested in how people are impacted when they speak up and how it varies based on who they are and where they're like socially located. And when they choose not to speak up, what are the barriers that prevent them from speaking up? So like, I'll give you an example. I did a panel last year that another really excellent whistleblower attorney, Wanda Hodges, organized at the National Bar Association, which is a historically Black, almost predominantly Black bar association. And we were talking about sort of like the impact of your identity and blowing the whistle, right? And if you are somebody and you work like in a company and you are like, let's say you have a disability and you are constantly having to speak up to have your reasonable like accommodations met, like you speak up on your own behalf, right? Like, there's no ramp here, et cetera. If you have to do that all the time at work, like, how much more bandwidth are you going to have to be like, I think they're committing fraud and I want to speak up about that too? Because there is this pressure, right? You don't want to be the one who's always complaining. There's this stigma with always complaining, making a fuss, not going with the flow, And I just told you, like, my personality is to go with the flow. So I'm really interested in people who don't do that, and also what keeps people from doing that. And I think we have a lot to learn about how do we need to set up systems, including at companies. A lot of companies care a lot about, internal compliance and ensuring that the people who want to report are heard and like the issues they see, those whistleblowers have seen are addressed. I think there's a lot of research out there that's happening and that should happen about whistleblowing and how to make it less stigmatizing and also how to make it more accessible, because I think especially now we need more transparency. You want people to feel confident and comfortable speaking up, and if you don't feel safe in your workplace for all these reasons that are outside of whatever fraud you might be witnessing, that makes you less and less likely to feel safe blowing the whistle. So anyway, that's a really long answer, but this is something that I'm really interested in, and I wish I had more time. Like, that is what I want to spend time on more and more.
No, that was great. I'll be honest, Hamza. I think like until you broke that down, the only exposure I had to whistleblowers was from one of my favorite TV shows, Suits, which is a great series. So that was my glimpse into the world of law, and you were talking about whistleblowers is what I knew until then. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, are you gonna make fun of me? I have never seen Suits.
No, I'm not gonna make fun of you because you've lived it. I was gonna ask, I guess, are there any TV shows that you've watched that depict any level of reality to being a lawyer? Because I've seen other videos of like other lawyers looking at Suits. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely not how it goes, or like anything like that.
Honestly, I can't think of anything. And you know why? I think it's because all of our jobs are so different. Law is such a huge bucket that even more, I think, than being a doctor, because I think no matter where you are in being a doctor, you're like providing care to people, right? Like, as a lawyer, like, there are people who just like look at real estate leases. There are people that only look at the tax code. There are people that like get patents and know a lot about science. So I am in such a niche little space. Like, I've never found a TV show where I was like, oh yeah, that's my job. But I'm trying to think. Okay, this is not a great example, but in Breaking Bad, Saul, the lawyer, he's just like solving problems. I do feel a little bit like my job. Like I don't like disappear people, but I do like feel a little bit my job is just like, how do we solve this problem? That's a little relatable to me.
Oh, nice. I wasn't expecting that. So that was lovely. Hamza, we can go on for hours. I do. There's one question I wanted to ask as we wrap up. I guess you've done a lot of great things, and I have no doubt you're going to continue to do amazing things and leave an impact when it's all said and done. But if you were to read 18-year-old you now, right, knowing what you know, like what would you tell 18-year-old Hamza like today if you like could have a coffee chat with her and they're like, I need some advice?
I think I would tell her she has time. It is never going to be too late to try to figure it out. I think I wish I had taken a little of the pressure off of myself to know what I was supposed to do. I still don't know what I'm supposed to do, and it's fine. I'm telling you, it's fine. And then I would also say, don't be so hard on yourself.
I love that. That is very valid. I think you could tell yourselves that. And yeah, I think, with that, if folks are interested in getting connected with you more, like with some of your firm and the cases there, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you or reach out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I work at Whistleblower Partners. Our website is whistleblower.law, not .com. Don't get lost.
Hey.
.law. And if you want to email me, my email is Hamsa, HAMSA at whistleblower.law. And I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there.
Phenomenal. Well, Hamza, it was a pleasure. I learned so much about you, for years now. So this was great. Definitely going to have you on the show again soon. And, with that, folks, that's a wrap for today's show. Thank you very much. Stay tuned for the next one.